This is Dr. Mike McKinney, and I'm president of Promise Broadcasting Network. And today in our studio, this is what we refer to on this program as the Author's Corner. We endeavor each week to bring a special guest to the people that I know that you'll find very interesting and informative. And today we have such a guest in our program and in our studio today. And it's our good friend, Jeff Minard. Jeff, welcome to the broadcast.
Thank you very much.
And I understand that you are director of the William Carey Library here in Pasadena.
Right. So it's called William Carey Library, but it's a book publisher.
Okay.
We don't have the name of publisher, but it's called William Carey Library. It's been in business about 40 years.
Wow.
But it was named for William Carey, who was the first missionary to India out of England around 1800. So what we publish is just books about missionaries and mission work. Cross-cultural missionary work, Christian missions. So that's the focus that we have.
And how long have you been the director of this marvelous program?
I've been director about 8 years,
Oh.
but it started over 40 years ago by Ralph Winter. Dr. Ralph Winter was the founder of the U.S. Center for World Mission, the Frontier Mission Fellowship, the Perspectives program, so many different programs here in Pasadena. He was associated with Fuller Seminary, and he's done so much work. He was a longtime missionary in Guatemala for many years. He's spoken and is well known all around the world. He passed away a few years ago, but I signed on. I volunteered first as a publisher, or as an author, and he eventually hired me to replace him as the publisher of William Carey Library. So
wonderful.
It's great. It's a small business, but we love this niche of just publishing books about missionaries.
Have you always been interested in publishing and writing and things of that sort?
Yeah, I have. I've been in publishing for most of my life. But it wasn't Christian publishing, it was software publishing or hardware or other kinds of manuals and that kind of thing, books and publishing.
And that's marvelous. And you must find it so interesting and rewarding to do this kind of work.
I do, because I've always admired the mission work, and I've done some short-term mission work most of my life. I've been overseas in different places.
Oh.
And I go, the way we work here in Pasadena is if we're part of this mission fellowship, we are also encouraged to spend a few weeks or a month overseas, every one of us. So I've never been a long-term missionary, but I've been a missionary for shorter terms overseas because I want to see what's going on.
Sure.
And also it's important to, we all believe how important it is to bring the word of Jesus to all of these countries. So what we kind of focus on is what's called the 1040 window. People know about that as a certain area of the world where there are mostly Muslim, Hindu, and Buddhist countries.
Yes.
So bless those people, but we know a lot of those people don't know the name of Jesus.
Yes.
And it causes lots of problems. We're involved in so many issues right now. And so many of us that work with missionaries want to bring missionaries to those places. And a lot of the workers and a lot of the disasters and a lot of the workers that go and help in disaster relief are really underneath, they're basically missionary compounds.
Tell me, Jeff, about your, have you been on the mission field yourself as an author and as the director of this wonderful organization?
Yeah, every year I go someplace for a month. So I've spent a month in Turkey, I spent a month in India. Later on this year I'm going to spend some time in North Africa.
Oh, very good.
And I'd like to, I used to run medical missions, go to the Middle East, Egypt, different places. I've taught for a month in Ukraine. I used to live in Jamaica. So there's a lot of different places to go because there are just wonderful people in the world. I mean, I've studied anthropology. So I look at the world as cultures. It's also the Christian religion, but all these different cultures and how they worship the Lord. It's just beautiful. Right. It's just wonderful to see all this.
Isn't that? Now, how exciting that must be. You must live a very interesting life, with world travels and all that.
It's desk work right now because I run a publishing company. But you're right. It's been a lot of fun, and I always want to go out into the field. Anybody that travels. I don't travel too much, but I travel just enough.
Well, you are definitely an ambassador for Jesus Christ.
Thank you.
Everywhere you go, you take him with you, and that's marvelous.
Well, so what our publishing company is let me just kind of explain that. We have a dozen or so designers, editors, and office managers and project managers in an office here in Pasadena. But we don't have a warehouse. We don't sell them out of here. We have a warehouse back east. and we design and lay out the book. So the way publishing works is somebody writes a manuscript
Yes.
or inquires to us, would you be interested in this book if I wrote it? And we just kind of work with them. Who are you? What's the book about? Are you an expert in this area? And it has to do, again, with cross-cultural mission. Well, it has to do with the concept of bringing Jesus to one of these remote countries.
I see.
And what's the experience? And if we like it, then we have a board, we approve it. And then we work with the author. We design it, we lay it out, we edit the word, we edit the text, we design the cover. So we just create a book. But we're not the ones that sell them. Bookstores and Amazon and everybody else sells them. In fact, that's our website is missionbooks.org,
Beautiful.
right up on top there.
Wow.
And that's our logo right there.
Beautiful. Do you have some examples with you today?
I do.
Yes.
These are some of the books we've done. We've done about 300 books in our 40 years, and most of them are still in print.
Oh, my.
And these are a few of the ones we've done in the last year or two. So I'll just quickly mention
Sure.
some of these. This is the Ralph Winter story. Ralph Winter is the man who hired me, who was the man who was the founder of the U.S. Center for World Mission, as a well-regarded fellow. This is a great biography of him by Harold Fickett, who used to be a pastor here in the L.A. area. Here's another one called Frontline Women. This is about gender relationships in Islam and how much they are similar to gender relationships in Christianity and Judaism.
Mm-hmm.
The way the Pastor Paul writes about men and women is very similar to the way Muslims treat men and women.
I see.
Now, we have different ideas about some of that, but underneath it, it comes from the same Middle East area 2,000 years ago.
Yes.
And it's very interesting about the parallels there. So when you're going to work with Muslims, and I love Muslims and I work with Muslim individuals, you need to understand something about the way they work with their genders, and a lot of that's covered in that book. We have a book here called Lessons Learned in the Lion's Den. This is a missionary in North Africa who was captured, sent to jail, stripped away from his family, and kept in jail, like Peter and like Paul and like some of the missionaries have been done.
yes.
For some long period of time, he got out, and this is his story. It's an honest, frank story of his life, his wife's life, and his children while he was in prison. What does that look like from all viewpoints of your entire family while you're in prison, and how has the Lord kept you going? How has the Lord given you the strength that you need to stay a member of Christ's kingdom while you're in prison? And he was released. Here's a story a lot of people don't know about. This is the profiles of African American missionaries.
Oh,
There are thousands and hundreds of African American missionaries. In fact, the very first missionary that left North America was a freed slave. Before any American missionaries, Adoniram Judson or any of those Anglo missionaries, before they ever left the U.S.,
yes.
and a freed slave, in fact, his whole family left South Carolina to go to Jamaica to volunteer to be slaved so he could bring Christ to the slaves in Jamaica.
I didn't know that.
And this is about a lot of other African American missionaries even today. It's an area that the church doesn't talk about. Many African Americans don't know how important they've been in missionary work. So that's a book.
That's very interesting.
This is a book about sexual relationships, also in Islam, and about gender relationships back and forth, because these things are so important to so many faiths, and
Yes.
it's important to understand the way that works. This is environmental missions. So we think of environmental stuff in terms of global warming or something like that, but it's a mission field because so many of the unreached places in the world, like Bangladesh and Pakistan, they're actually such bad water, such bad air, so much just devastation. It's because they don't have a sense of the creation care that our Lord taught us to take care of the land.
Yes.
And how missions can speak into that as part of a way of preserving your life, your family life, and your country's life. So
Very
environmental missions is an important thing. Then there's young people. We call them millennials. Millennials in mission.
Millennials, I like
This is what do 25-year-olds think about this stuff. When it's old white guys like me, what do they think? Well, there's a lot of good things. These are great people. I love this millennial generation. It's our grandchildren. And we've got a lot of great people writing into this book. So that's fantastic. Then there's some humor. You've heard of Streams in the Desert, which is a famous book. This is Screams in the Desert,
Oh, I see.
which is a woman raising children in a Muslim country as a missionary. And what is it like to hold the family together? What is it like to raise your own children? What is it like when the women and the children in the neighborhood come to you? What is that interchange like in being part of that community, all in Arabic, when you're supposed to be a missionary worker and you've got a husband and a mission team to bring together?
My goodness.
That's a complex task.
Yes, yes.
And then here's the last one I'll talk about, which people may know about. It's the Operation World. It's the famous prayer guide. This is like a world almanac.
Beautiful book.
This has been around for many years, but we, William Carey Library, are the co-publisher of this book.
Oh, my.
And we have a lot of these. So this is a fantastic book. I'm not trying to sell books so much as tell people about the ministry involved.
Very, very interesting.
But we have many of these available very inexpensively. So this is a great ministry. So it's great. We've seen a lot of these authors as scribes. You know,
Yes.
Paul had a scribe, Silas, who wrote down his words. We treat these guys as scribes.
Mm-hmm.
These are the scribes that see what the Lord is doing in Muslim countries, Hindu countries, and Buddhist countries to make his name known.
And it also gives perspective to we at home in the Christian community as ministers and the church. It kind of educates us
Right.
on other cultures and how we can best minister to
Right.
them. I know you in your travels, I'm sure you've encountered a lot of wonderful things happening because of the Lord and your understanding of how to approach this culture.
Well, you too, and you've spent so much time in so many places, Philippines and so many other places.
Yes.
You know, when you go away and you come back, you know your own country better. When you learn another language and you come back and speak English, you learn English better. You suddenly see it in a different way.
Different perspective.
When you go to other places, even other Christian countries, and you come back, you see Christianity differently. You can perceive Jesus
Yes.
in your life differently because you've seen Jesus in other people's lives. You know, it's a world that he created, not just a country.
That's right.
And we want to see the way Jesus operates in all these other places.
And he's alive and well, isn't he?
He's alive
Jeff?
and well.
In all these
It's
nations.
incredible how active he is in these places.
Yeah, when we were in India a few years ago, I held a citywide crusade, and another Christian pastor of a different denomination said to me, well, this is India. We Christians here all stick together. So I'm going to assist you in everything you're doing, although they had some little differences in understanding of the word. But yet we were able to unite and work together and had a great crusade.
That's right.
So you've seen that type of cooperation among the churches there in those countries.
Absolutely.
And so I know that the printed page is so important even today, isn't it, Jeff, to people reading and understanding? And
It is. We work with Kindle and the electronic documents. We're happy to do that also because there's a lot
Right.
of people that want it. In fact, that's a way we very honestly get to what we call creative access countries. If I can't bring these books into a Muslim country,
yeah.
I don't have to. You can download it and bring it in on your Kindle.
Oh, that's tremendous. It's
So-
all there.
It's business to a lot of business people. It's a generation that likes to read on their cell phones.
Oh, yeah.
But in ministry,
Wow.
it's bringing Christian work into non-Christian countries.
What an opportunity
So,
now. God
it's
has brought.
fantastic.
It's just fantastic. It's something that, it's so new and different, but yet it's making an impact
Right.
around the world.
It is. You can find stuff online, especially through other publishers that do what we do, that you can't find anywhere else. Wow. Yeah, it's just a gift.
I think it's wonderful that you're a minister and you're also a publisher and a writer and author. You must feel very fulfilled in your own personal life and working there at William Carey.
What personal life?
Well, yeah. Well, I
It's
mean,
so-
No,
I'm joking because it's so busy. I am just so
you're
blessed.
so busy.
I mean, the Lord has just given me tremendous blessings, and I just have to keep up with Him.
I know. I was
You gotta
last
focus,
year.
you know.
Yeah, last year I ordained a bunch of new ministers coming in the Philippines, and I told them your personal life is over.
That's
That's
right,
my
that's
opening
right.
statement.
Well, the Lord is part of my personal life, but we do
Of
have to keep
course.
a balance, don't we?
There has to be a balance.
We have to keep
yeah.
a balance between these things.
Right.
Because the Lord wants us to be fruitful. He wants us to be so joyous in our lives
Right.
that without necessarily studying, we can be excited and just witness for Him just because we live this fruitful life.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And when did the Lord begin to deal with your heart as a young person about missions and writing and public? How did this all come about?
Well, I remember missionaries when I was a kid. I grew up in the Methodist Church. I remember missionaries coming and speaking. Then I went to college and I kind of drifted away. But I studied anthropology. And that's not mission, but it's going overseas, studying people groups,
People's
languages,
groups, yeah.
and coming back. So it was missions without being church related.
Okay.
And I kind of separated out. But when I came back to all that, I go, oh, I was intended to be an anthropologist, but
Yes.
an anthropologist missionary.
That's what it was.
So I
the
just
Lord
kind
had
of- that's right.
a greater designation.
That's right. So I kind of combined all those things. Yeah.
Oh my! That's exciting, and your work with, of course, Dr. Winter was just a wonderful, wonderful leader and a great man. And
He's a great mentor. Yeah, he died about 6 years ago now.
Yes. Did you become a close friend of his during your time?
I didn't know him well enough. But most of us, there's about 100 of us at the U.S. Center. He's well known there, and he's still well regarded.
Wow.
And of course, what he's created there has gone through a lot of changes also.
Oh, yes, yes.
Because we have kind of a new organization, a new branding.
Yeah, what's the name of the new brand now?
Yeah, so we're calling it Frontier Ventures.
Frontier Ventures.
We used to have different names, but Frontier Ventures means, it's not the missions word. We're not afraid of that, but around the world, the word Christianity kind of creates challenges, and the word mission creates challenges. So Frontier Ventures actually is a good word, even regardless of that. We're not trying to avoid those.
Well, I like it. I think it's very good.
It's a good word because we're venturing into frontiers.
That's very true.
To identify problems and surmount the barriers to bringing the Lord's word to everybody in the world. So we have Perspectives, which is a series of courses. We have books, we have magazines, we have these books. We have a lot of teaching. We have the Winter Launch Lab, the Ralph Winter Launch Lab. We have the Resource Center. We have archives. We have a lot of things we're getting into, multimedia things. A studio, not as good as this one, but it's different kinds of recording, different kinds of videos. We're putting a lot of stuff in different multimedia.
And I'm glad that the U.S. Center is going back into media, because they were known for, they had a radio station at one time, and television training for television and things like that.
That's right.
And I think I'm glad to see a return to the media portion.
It is. It's true. Well, we're growing and we're just exploding.
It's great. The campus is beautiful. We share with our university there on the campus at Promise Christian, and it's just been a real experience for us. So how many, I imagine, do you publish, you must publish a lot of books every year, is that right? Is there a large publishing thing going on?
We go from 15 to 20 a year, new ones.
Very good, that's a lot.
But we sell fewer than a lot of other publishers do, because missions is it's a niche. You've got to be interested in missions.
Yes.
In global missions. And it's great when people buy our books because it helps send money, of course, to the mission
And of course, you
agency.
have a very nice bookstore there on the campus. It's very, very good. I enjoyed, and the magazine, the Dr. Winter's magazine, the Frontier Missions, he's been publishing that for years, hasn't he?
Right, since the 70s.
Since the 70s.
Yeah, that goes to churches every other month. Mission
Yes.
Frontiers is the magazine.
Oh, yeah, Mission Frontiers. That's a very good, excellent thing. Yeah. Wow. So how do you see your work in the near future? What do you feel the Lord is heading up in the Christian publishing world, the mission outreach world? What do you see the Lord doing in the near future?
Well, actually, for my job as the director of William Carey Publishers, I'm actually looking for a successor. I'm looking for someone else, if there's anyone who's interested, that knows somebody about publishing. They know about business. They know about missions. They have to be a strong believer. I'm looking for somebody to do this job.
That's right.
Because I'm moving to be, I'm kind of one of the other elders in the community, the Frontier Ventures community, and there's some other launch lab and research center duties that I'm going to be pulled into. So it's a great, fantastic thing. When you're doing a work in this center, there's so many other opportunities. So occasionally we want to train young people, train people to take over some of these jobs. It's a great seat.
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
I'm very glad that you're doing that, and you're mentoring now. As you were mentored, now you're mentoring. And I know God will always raise up somebody, won't he, to carry on the work that's begun.
Does.
And you're very interesting. That's very interesting, all these wonderful things you're sharing today. Also, Jeff, I understand you also recently became a chaplain of an organization called the United States Volunteers Joint Services Command. Right. And tell us somewhat about this organization and why your involvement, why that you felt led to become a chaplain with this and put back on that military uniform that you used to wear.
It's true. Well, I'm a vet from many years ago, and
you were a captain in the Army.
Army Signal Corps.
Army Signal Corps.
Right. And I love radios. My father was a radio man in World War II, so I like radio.
Runs in the family.
It does. And I hadn't thought about it until I met a chaplain with the USV years ago at the church I go to. That was Chaplain Kirtley.
Yes.
And he introduced me to Promise Christian University, which is on the campus where the U.S. Center is. And then after a little while, I just sort of made a point to communicate that I was interested in these classes. And I met you, Mike McKinney, and Dr. Adele, and just enrolled in these classes. And I had no idea you could train to be a chaplain in this kind of a way. I hadn't really thought about it. I wasn't. I knew chaplains when I was in the service, but I didn't know what that was.
Yes.
And so I appreciate that very much, because as part of the U.S. Center, in studying theology and studying the work that I do, and learning that chaplaincy is also multicultural.
Oh, yes, it is.
Because we have to be chaplains to everybody in the service, and in the case of the U.S. volunteers, it's being a chaplain, boots on the ground, helping to administer burials, especially at Riverside and other kinds of military funerals
Yes.
in cemeteries. So I just love that kind of work because of being a Vietnam era vet.
Yes.
My brothers and sisters are not being well served, I don't think, and they're doing the best they can.
I
There's
agree.
just not enough staff to
That's
handle these ceremonies, and I just really want to help.
Yes, I'm glad, and I'm glad we're working together out at Riverside National. A lot of people don't realize it's becoming the Arlington of the West.
Okay.
60 services a day,
Wow.
from World War II to the present, and so, and I'm very happy to say that Promise Christian University has been the school of choice to train the chaplains for the United States Volunteers.
That's fantastic.
And we're just so happy you're one of our newest chaplains, and we're proud of you to come aboard with us, and we're so glad because you bring a wealth of background and knowledge, and I know you're going to make a tremendous chaplain with our group. And
It's
just
fun.
great.
It's great fun. I appreciate it very much.
And good to see you in your uniform again. So, and we go out and do the funerals, and I know that they really appreciate the members of the families. They just so appreciate this, and so part of it is, and then also you're involved. It says here emergency services. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, in the past I've been involved with the Orange County Search and Rescue Team,
Oh, mention that.
and I've done
That's
training
good.
with the Salvation Army. So just different courses. And I'm interested that the USV has also an emergency service wing. So
Yes.
and even our center where we are in Pasadena. Pasadena, of course, is going to be involved
Oh, yeah.
if there's any sort of earthquakes in Southern California.
Oh, yes.
So there's lots of places to become involved in just community service and ways to help out in case there's emergencies, here or overseas.
Oh,
I went
great.
to Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans after that. And
Oh, I didn't realize that. You've been there
places.
too. Oh, my. Well, the Lord's really taken you to some very interesting places. That's good. So involved. So how long have you been involved in emergency services now, would you say?
I haven't for the last couple of years, but it's been for 10 years.
10
All
years.
through the 90s, yeah.
My. Well, like you say, there's a need for that, and someday, if we ever called upon, hopefully we'll be ready to serve and step into those areas that are so very, very needful, and I'm sure that we will, and especially as chaplains today in our nation. Our nation needs these wonderful men and women of God who are now serving and doing the things of the Lord. Again, would you give us, if they would like to get a hold of you, Jeff, could you give the website to our viewers today and mention maybe in the camera there what how they can reach you?
Sure. Well, the book publishing company website is missionbooks.org, just those
Okay.
two words, missionbooks.org. And there's emails on there, but my email there, or let me just give my email anyway.
Sure.
It's just Jeff M. for Minard, JeffM495 at yahoo.com. That's an easy one, JeffM495 at yahoo.
Very good. Very good. Well, I want to thank you for being
you.
our special guest today on the Author's Corner for the broadcasting company here today, Promise Broadcasting. We're very happy to have in studio today Jeff Minard, who is director of the at the U.S. Center for World Missions, the director of the library, and as he puts it, and also publishing company. And we're just delighted that he was our guest today. And we hope that you enjoyed. I'm sure you enjoyed listening to his wonderful testimony. And if we want to continue to bring these wonderful telecasts to you each week. And we know the Lord's going to bless you. So I want to thank you again for tuning in today. And continue to watch Promise Broadcasting Network. We recently come on the air. And we're bringing a different variety of programs to you. And the Author's Corner is one of them. And I personally am enjoying it just immensely. So we again thank our very wonderful guest here today, Jeff Minard. Then God bless you real good, and tune in again next time. Thank you for being on the show.